Okay, hatboro-horsham. Here's what we talked about in class the other night, the string 6 and string 5, the chords that are built from those two strings. Really important for you as you move on to know these and to learn these. And most importantly, to start thinking of these chords as built from these notes on string 6 and string 5. And because that lays out the relationships with fourths, fifths, and thirds and sixths and things like that you use constantly in the guitar. So let's look at the notes on string 6, which you should memorize. You just have to, and it's really not a difficult task. I think at this point with 15 minutes of looking at your guitar and just figuring out what these notes are, since they're in a standard, never-ending progression, a succession. The F sharp note's always preceded by an F, it's always succeeded by a G, etc. They're always in the same position. And those positions are E, that's open string 6. String 6 fret 1 is F, string 6 fret 2, F sharp, string 6 fret 3 is a G. Note that there is a dot there. So the first dot, the note is a G on string 6. File that away. String 6 fret 4 is a G sharp. String 6 fret 5 is an A. Fret 6 is A sharp. Fret 7 is a B. Fret 8 is a C. Fret 9 is a C sharp. And you'll notice that we just passed a few dots. There's a dot at fret 5, that's an A on string 6, and a dot at fret 7, that's a B. And there's a dot at the note that I just gave, which is C sharp, and that's at fret 9. At fret 10, it's D, fret 11, D sharp, and fret 12, not surprisingly, or it has to be, that's also an A. So we start with an A, down at fret 12 we have an A, and then that same progression would ensue. F sharp, G, G sharp, A, right on down to the last fret that you have. So when we make chords, you look at the notes here, the root note on anywhere along string 6, a chord shape is built from that note. And I'll start with a G. A G, for instance, is string 6 fret 3, as you know. And if you look at the handouts that I've given you on what the major scale is, and I'm going to get to that in a minute because that's necessary in this discussion. If you look at that handout, you'll see that the notes in a G chord are a G, a B, and a D. So no matter how I make this G chord, and there are two ways to make it with string 6 fret 3 as the root note, the notes are always going to be G, B, and a D, and I'll let you to do that afterwards. However, the chord formation is the one that you know from the first week or two that you had guitar, which is string 6 fret 3, string 5 fret 2, and string 1 fret 3, which give me the notes from string 6 down to string 1. The notes are G, B, D, G, B, G. And that's the very familiar. You can make it a few different ways. You can also make it by holding down string 2 fret 3, because that's a D note. Say string 2 open is B, the first fret is C, second fret is C sharp, third fret is D. So that's also a G note, or G chord, excuse me. Big difference there, G chord. So going this way with G as the last note going down the guitar neck, or the farthest down the guitar neck, that is a G chord, but there's another G chord that's made from this very same note, and that's moving an E formation, this E formation, which is string 3, fret 1, string 4, fret 2, and string 5, fret 2. To take this and move it, keeping the same relationship string to string, which means that I need to bar the where this bar is right here, which is, you know, the end of your guitar at that nut. That when I move this down, I have a G. So I can make a G going up that way up the neck, or down the neck. I can do that anywhere along here. For instance, a C, and if I say a C from the with a 6-string bass, you would immediately go down here to the C note, C, E, F, G, A, B, C. Immediately go down there, and you could make a G chord. This would not be used at speed normally, but that's a G chord with the same formation, with a bar here that takes the place of this bar when we're playing up in this, at this 3rd position. Move down here, that would be a G. I can go to, or excuse me, a C note, G formation, a C chord, and then I start down here on that same 6-string bass, that C note, and form an E behind it. I have a C chord, or excuse me, a C chord. So an A chord would be made this way, which once again you don't usually use that, but you do use it a lot in a form like this without fingering the 1st string A note at string 1, fret 5. So anywhere you go along here, you have a G headed this way if you were to make a G, and you have and that would be a D chord, for instance, right here, string 6, fret 10. If I finger mimic the G chord formation that you know up here, if I play that down here with now this bass note, which is a D note, that becomes a D chord. I can also make the D chord with that E chord formation behind it and have a D chord down here. So any note along here, you can do that. And that's very important. And that makes, that's one of the easier things on guitar that you can tap into, because you don't have to learn a different position for every chord along here. You have to get the very same position and a different chord just by building the chord on a different root note. Now, that's string 6 has 2 chords, one that faces up the neck and one that faces down the neck. The one that faces up the neck is the G chord that you learned, and the one that faces down the neck is taking an E chord shape and moving that down with a bar to the G note on string 6, fret 3. String 5, the notes are A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So and this is the next string that you should memorize. At that point, you've got 3 strings memorized. You've got half the guitar memorized. So take the time out and do that. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, etc., right on down to the A an octave higher at fret 12. We have the same thing facing up the neck like this. There's a C chord that you know and love that you've had in so many songs. And the C chord is, I'm putting my ring finger on string 5, fret 3. That's a C note, because that's what the chord's built on. And at string 4, fret 2, I put my middle finger. That's an E note, String 3 open is a G note, as you know. String 2 fret 1 is a C note, and string 1 open is an E. So every note is a C, an E, or a G. Once again, you can check that out on the sheet that I gave you. And this is just a mathematical matrix, and no matter how you slice it, you're going to end up with the same notes. It's just math. It's just arithmetic. So that's a C, a 5-note C, so that Bill Knowles doesn't complain that I'm making a 6-note C. So it's a 5-note C, 5-string, and that's facing up the neck. You have a C chord with this formation. When you face down the neck, what you have is an A chord in this position that's moved down to fret 3 at string 5 is still the C note bass, and you build this C chord from this shape. Anywhere you build the chord, whatever this note is on string 5, for instance, it's a D note at string 5 fret 5 with the very same shape. I have a D chord. If I bar this C, I have a D chord here, and you say, but that's not the way I learned the D chord there. I learned it like this. Yes, you did, because you don't have to do this barring and making it a tougher formation for you. With the D chord up here, you happen to have an open string 4, which is a D. That's a root note. So you can consider this D chord that you first learned, the very first chord you ever learned, you can consider that's built off string 4 open, because that's equivalent to saying string 5 fret 5. They're both the same notes, as you know from tuning the guitar. So, and also string 5 happens to be the 5th. A D chord is a D, an F sharp, and an A. So you have the D, you have the bass on string 4 open, and string 5 open, you have the 5th. So you have that. If I continue that, you have an alternated pattern between a root note and a 5th. Root note on string 4, 5th on string 5. That just so happens it falls out and makes that one easy for you. So going back this way, down the neck of the guitar, as I said, you have a chord that's built on the A shape. So this chord's A sharp or B flat, B, C. So I have a C chord and a D chord here. Now if I want to play a 1-4-5 progression in the key of G, that would be, here's the 1, that's the root note, that's the G note. Right below it is the 4th. It's always the 4th. Right below, in these bass strings, these first 3 strings, right below it is the 4th, and and I said first 3. It's actually his first 4. No, the first 3 that it's under. The fourth is under this G, and the 5th is 2 frets down. And you have to make a real prominent type of 1-4-5 sound. So the 1-4-5 progression that's used in so many songs, and if it's not just a progression of a 1-4-5, those chords are in there in the mix of chords usually. So you'd have that's a G, C, D, C, and this would be the 1 chord, 4, 5, 4. Now I could have that very same sound in any key just by using those same shapes and moving it to whatever key I'm in. If I'm in the key of B flat, for instance, that would be the B flat note is right here, it's string 6, fret 6. I make this G formation here, and then go down to the A formation with the chord, the 4th chord in the key of B flat, right here, right under it, and then the 5th in the key of B flat, 2 frets down at fret 7, or excuse me, fret 8. So I'd have four, 5, 4. So that's the first part that you want to get. The next is this major scale, which is, we've done this before, but at any spot here you can make a major scale off string 6, the very same shape, and the notes will change, but the relative sound compared to whatever root note you choose stays relatively the same. So if I were playing the key of G, the major scale is string 6, fret 3, string 6, fret 5. And any note that I play on a particular fret will be played by the same finger. Right now in the key of G, starting with my middle finger at string 6, fret 3, any note that I play on string 2 will be played with my index finger. On the string on fret 3, it will be with my middle finger, and on fret 4, it's going to be with my ring finger, fret 5 with my pinky. So that's going to be string 6, fret 3, G, string 6, fret 5 with my pinky, string 5, fret 2 with my index, string 5, fret 3 with my middle finger, string 5, fret 5 with my pinky, string 4, fret 2 with my index finger, string 4, fret 4 with my ring finger, and string 4, fret 5 with my pinky. So that's the do, re, mi, fa, so scale that you learned in grade school, and learn to play it backwards and forwards. But know what the degrees of the scale are. That this is what's going to get important. This is the root note up here at string 6 with this formation of the scale. 2 frets down is going to be the 2nd on string 5, and 1 fret up the neck is the 3rd, and the 4th, which is really popular or useful for making that 1, 4, 5 chord progression. That string 5, fret 3 is the 4th in the scale of G. The 5th is string 5, fret 5, which is 2 frets down below string 6, fret 3, the root note. And then the 6th of that scale is at string 4, fret 2. The 7th, which is the major 7th, is string 4, fret 4. And string 5, that's the octave again that starts from there. So that's good enough for now. We'll pick up. You really want to understand that and get familiar with what these relations are. That this is the first, anywhere you go here. I'm going to go to B flat, but you don't even know it. Have to know it's B flat. If you play that same scale, first of all, it's going to sound the same. It's going to sound like a major scale, and I'll continue the scale in a further lesson. And many of you already know it, so don't stop there. This is, if you don't know this, it's just a way to categorize music and make it much easier when you truly apply this little bit of knowledge. So if I come down here to string 6, fret 6, and I'm playing a B flat scale right here, and the same relationships will hold. This will be the the first, the second, the third, the fourth, right below. And this is the fifth in the B flat scale, the sixth in the B flat scale, the seventh in the B flat scale, and the repeat in the B flat scale. So I'd have the very same. See, those formations don't change. Okay, start thinking. You know a lot of those chords, or you know all of those chords, but start thinking of how they're built. They're built from a root note, and then there's a major third and a minor third. A major third is 4 notes away in a G, as an example. G, B, and D are the 3 notes that make up a chord triad for G. Here's the G. If I go 4 notes away, I end up with a B. That's the third in the scale of G, and that is one of the notes that make up a G major chord. If I go 3 notes away from this B, I end up with a D chord. That's the 5th. So this chord has nothing but G, B, and a D in it. This chord, G, has nothing but G, B, and a D, and that's how it's determined. Count 4, then count 3. It's that simple for any chord that you make. If it's C chord, here's the C, string 5, fret 3, count 4. That's going to bring you 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to bring you down to an E note, count 3, 1, 2, 3. That's going to bring you to a G note. And all these notes in this chord are G, E, or C, E, or G, etc. Right on through every chord that you can play, all the 12 major chords that you can play. So that's it. As I said, understand that little bit of theory, and it'll really help you moving on. And I'll see you Tuesday.